Okay, so this is 2.3 cross products and dot products tutorial example. Okay, so welcome. My name is Jim Corkins. All right, let's do this. So what we were supposed to do is find the length of the vector q, which is x dot e, and find the length of q with x cross e. Now, there's a lot of ways to do this, and we could do this a couple of the different ways. But the best way to do it is to break these two vectors up into their components. Okay, so let's call this x direction vector. I'm going to label it red. This vector x is red. Its x component is right here. And so this is the x component of x, which is positive 3. And the y component of x, which is weird, is also positive 3. Now, the e vector is pointing down and to the right. So that's the e vector. And it looks like it's down 3. What is that? 1, 2, 3, 4. No, it's down 4. So e sub y is negative 4. And e sub x is 1, 2, 3, 4. So e sub x is equal to positive 4. Okay? So in this section 2.3, if you remember from that video with the dot products, what you could do for the dot products is do this. We're going to take the parallel components of them, and we're going to go ahead and multiply them together, and that will be the overall length of C, of Q. So in other words, since we're solving for Q here, to find the length of Q, we're going to take the x direction components of x and multiply them by the x direction components of E, and we're going to add that to the y components of x times the y components of E. Okay? And so, and I should have used, oh boy. So let me use red for that stuff, and I'm going to use black for that. So just to make it visually apparent. So we're just finding the length of Q. So take the x components of x and E and multiply them together. And take the y components of x and E and multiply them together, and then add that together. So to find Q, the length of Q, using dot products, that is going to be the x component, which is going to be positive 3, and we're going to multiply that by the e vector component, which is positive 4, and the signs are important. And we're going to add that to the x direction components, the y direction components of x, which is positive 3. And we're going to multiply that by the y components of 4, which is going to be negative 4. Okay, so we're actually going to be doing some subtraction here. So this is going to be 12, right? So that's positive 12, and this is going to be plus a negative 12. So Q is going to end, so the dot product of where q is equal to x dot e, that is going to be equal to 0. So this is 0. Okay? All right, let's try the cross product. Okay, for the cross product, this could be simple or difficult depending on what you're trying to learn here. But we're going to go ahead and do it both ways. We're going to create our little ijk, and then we're going to have this other component, which is going to be the I and j. Okay, and then we're gonna create our formulas from there. Okay, so neither of them. So we'll put the x direction first. The x direction has a positive 3 in the I direction and a positive 3 in the j direction, but 0. So positive 3 and positive 3. For the e vector, that has a positive 4 in the I direction and has a negative 4 in the j direction and has a 0 in the k direction. So we are going to be doing this where we do our little vectors where we're multiplying through. And again, this is the difficult one way. So these are going to be positives, and the negatives are going the other direction. And there may be other ways of doing this. I don't know. I was taught to do it this way. And this direction. So, in other words, when we go ahead to create this, this is going to be for q, and we do get, when we're finding the length of this, we actually do get the length and the direction with the cross products, unlike the dot products. So, what we're going to do is do it one step at a time, and I do need more room to construct this equation this way. So we're going to do the i's first. So this is going to be positive 3 times 0 minus, for the I, that'll be 0. Make sure you go in order, times negative 4, and this is for the I hat. Now we're going to do the j hat, and I need to kind of go down in this direction, sorry. For the j hat, we've got 0 times a positive 4, so red 0 times a positive 4, and then we're going to subtract from that this guy for the j, which is going to be positive 3 times 0. So positive 3 times 0. So it's looking like it has no components in the x or y direction, right? Because this is going to work out to be 0 I hat plus 0 j hat, right? We're going to figure out what the k hat is right here. So the k hat direction is going to be positive 3 times negative 4 times negative 4, and we're going to go minus the k hat, which is going to be positive 4 times positive 3 minus positive 4 times, nope, that should be positive 3 times positive. Red is coming first. Positive 3 times positive 4. And this is for the k-hat direction. So let's go ahead and see what this is. So this is going to be, negative 12. And I'm just going to double check. So that is negative 12. And then minus 3 times 4, which is also a 12, but we got the negative in front, which is k-hat. So Q is going to be equal to oh boy, that hat turned crazy. That's going to be so Q is going to end up being only in the k-hat direction, and that looks like it's going to be negative 24 k-hat. Now we only want the length, so this is just 24. So get rid of the direction of this, okay? And we're just going to put in a number as 24. So, so we're trying to find the length of Q here and the length of Q here, okay? So again, if it turns out to be negative or positive, and with a K, you just get rid of the negatives, okay? Now, the easy way to do this, okay, you just have to go in order. So we're going to always do, now the quicker way, the smarter way, I think, is since we have the links of those vectors and we don't have to do anything too difficult, okay, we have the x direction and y direction. And so what we had learned before is I cross j, that's going to end up being a k, right? And then so j cross j is equal to 0, and I cross I is going to end up being 0. We need the perpendicular components, right? And then that becomes the other component, right? And so k, again, is the z direction, which is in and out. So we have to multiply components together, okay? And it doesn't matter the order at which you do this, really, because we're going to take a perpendicular component. So if you start with red, so we know our answer has, I guess what I'm saying is, since the j stuff is going to end up being 0, because so the I cross I, positive 3 cross positive 4 is going to be 0, and positive 3 times a negative 4 is going to be 0. So the only option is the k-hat stuff. So you could go right to that point on these vectors. Okay, we're not going to be dealing with any z direction stuff. So you could start building it right away. And you just have to go in order. So, and since I did red, what we're going to do is we're going to go in order. We're going to go this positive x here. So this is going to be, we're going to take EX and multiply it. Oh, sorry, X. We're going to go red. So the X direction of X, and we're going to multiply it by the Y direction of E. Right? So we're going to go this guy times this guy, right? And we could have easily had started with the EX and over here. And I could show that to you in a second. But and now what we're going to do is the X direction of the Y times, the Y direction of the X vector, and we're going to multiply that by the X direction of the E vector. The E vector's X direction. And so when we do this, what we're going to get is positive 3 times negative 4. So positive 3 times a negative 4. And now we're going to subtract from that the positive 3 y direction times the positive 4 x direction. Oop, I should make that blue. Positive 4 x direction. So when we do it this way, you end up getting the exact same product. You end up getting negative 12 minus positive 3 times positive 4. So you end up getting negative 24 k hat. Okay. And so the answer for the length of Q is just going to be 24. Okay. Had we started with blue first, okay, we're going to get the exact same thing, right? So let me show you. So what we're about to do is we're going to go with the blue first. And so let's start over here. The blue's x direction, so we're going to go EX times x, y. Well, it'll be a different sign, but you know what I'm saying. Here we go. So I'm going to put the y direction of this times the x direction of this. K hat. And what you get here is for the x direction of E, right here is positive 4. And we're going to multiply that by the x direction, the y direction of 3, which is positive 3. And we're going to subtract from that the y direction of E, which is negative 4, times the y direction of 3, times the x direction of 3, I mean, which is positive 3. And so this is k hat. So Q is going to be equal to positive 12 minus a negative 4 times 3, so minus a negative 12, which is going to be a positive 12 k hat. So this is going to be 24 k hat. So so this is going to end up being a positive. So the reason why I just want the length of this is because this negative and positive really doesn't matter. We know it's going to be pointing in the k direction by 24. Okay, well, not sure if it's going to be pointing in or out. Okay, we'd have to do a right-hand rule on top of that. Okay, so this is how to do it. I recommend doing the dot product just like I showed you, and doing the cross product just like I showed you here. Okay, and you don't have to do it both ways, and you don't have to do it with this whole matrix stuff too. Although if you want to practice, maybe do one like this and then do the other ones like I showed you right here. Okay, all right, have a good day.